Thanks for staying with us. Joining us much later is the spokesman for the House of Representatives, Honorable Benjamin Kalu. He will be speaking on the budget proposal presented by President Muhammadu Buhari before a joint session of the National Assembly on Friday. The spending proposal of 20.52 billion, christened as a budget of fiscal consolidation and transition, is unarguably the president's last budget. But joining us now is Mr. Tajuddin Akonde, the managing partner, PKF Professional Services, the president, Ikeja Business Club, a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICAN, a member, Chartered Taxation Institute of Nigeria, FCTI, and ALOS Institute of Directors. Welcome to the show, Mr. Tajuddin.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So the president's budget has been making rounds on social media platforms, and everybody has been talking about it, and that's the reason we have you here today. Now, let me ask you, what do you make of this budget breakdown?
Thank you very much for that question. Of course, like most Nigerians, I listen attentively to the budget, especially this being the last budget of the present administration, and the fact that we are in transition to a new dispensation. When the country or any country is an election year, of course, economists, analysts, financial experts are very much interested in the direction of the economy. So the president has presented a budget of almost 20.2 trillion in terms of expenditure, and against a backdrop of revenue of 9.7 trillion. So the first thing is to look at the size of the revenue against the size of the expenditure, and you can see a gap of over 3 trillion. Of course, Nigeria has been running budget deficits in the last 3, 4, 5 years. And ordinarily, everybody is worried. Well, we need to situate this, in proper context, that in the life of this administration, we have experienced 2 economic depressions. On top of that, there was COVID-19 pandemic, which shut down the economy all over the world, which is resulting in economic hardship everywhere. And on top of that, too, there is the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. There may not be a direct impact of that, but there are spillover effects. So the totality of this is we are in a situation where one has to be worried that how do we finance a budget where the expenditure is over 200% of revenue. Over the last many years, people have been worried that the main problem of this economy is the fact that we are not generating enough revenue for the size of our economy. I mean, our revenue to GDP is reported at about 8%, which is even the lowest in sub-Saharan Africa. The tax to GDP ratio is not better either. So the real problem, as the Minister of Finance alluded to during the joint session with the House of Assembly, is the fact that we are not earning enough to sustain our expenditure. And when you look at the expenditure profile itself, we can see that personnel cost alone at 4.99 trillion is already half of the revenue. So capital expenditure of 5.35 trillion, so the entire revenue is already gone into that. On top of that, we have debt service of 6.3 trillion, which is over 30% of our revenue, of our expenditure. So yes, one is to be worried, but to me, as an accountant, if you can either deal with your revenue or you control expenditure. If we are talking of expenditure that is personnel cost, pension, gratuity, and other what you can call fixed overhead, then there's a limit to which that can be controlled further, except maybe in terms of reducing the size of government and all that. So the other way to look at it is how do we improve revenue generation, especially when statistics have shown that we are not earning enough at all. 8% revenue over our GDP is very low. We have set ourselves in the medium-term expenditure profile of 15% revenue to GDP. So how do we achieve that? Now, over many years, we have been an oil-dependent nation. When we look at the breakdown of 2021 budget and its performance,
Are you there, sir?
I am there.
Okay.
Okay. So when you look at that, you will see that even oil that had been the mainstay of the economy, the revenue from oil is been declining. Of course, we want diversification, but where, if you look at the president's budget presentation, the average production during the review period was at 1.3 million barrels per day, when our OPEC quota is 2.1, and we have done the budget on the basis of about 1.6 million barrels. About 2 days ago, I listened to news and I was shocked to hear that Nigeria has ceased to be the #1 oil producer in Africa. Angola has taken over.
Yeah.
These are things that cause worry, which means we now have to look at the non-oil revenue. Of course, the diversification we have been.
Yes.
In this budget, government is projecting 7.8 trillion from non-oil revenue, which is over 80% of the revenue expected. So how do we achieve that or surpass that? Because if we are earning 9 trillion and we are going to be servicing debt by 6 trillion, in fact, we need to surpass that and see what we can control from.
Thank you, Mr. Tagley.
These are my initial.
Yes, let me get some more questions.
That was a very extensive initial thought, sir. Very extensive. I am a trained financial coach. I help people build wealth. And one of the things that I realize about Nigeria's financial model, which you have addressed sort of, is that we are spending what we cannot earn. And
we can have what we are not earning for now.
Yes, what we are not earning for now. And while we have struggled in the past 4 years to try and increase earning, it's obvious that we haven't been able to master that. So we should have gone back to what can work first, which is to cut costs. I've shared that on some platforms, and they've said no. You cannot cut costs with the economic outlook we have right now. We need to spend our way out of this current crisis. Do you believe that? Do you believe that we should follow this model of spending our way out of crisis? Do you believe that we are spending on the right things and that this model can help us out of where we are financially as a country?
Okay. I think it cannot be a one-way approach. It has to be tackled from multi-dimension. In terms of expenditure, in a way, I agree that we cannot stop spending. Because, for instance, if we did not spend, the economy is likely to go back into depression. And that will create a lot more hardship. Now, what do? I think what we should do, basically, without foreclosing the need to control expenditure further, especially in terms of non-productive expenditure. But in terms of infrastructure spending, of course, there is still a lot more begging for attention in the area of infrastructure, which could trigger economic growth, create employment, increase production, and all that. On the revenue side, the fact that we are not earning enough is not because maybe this economy is not generating income. It is because of wastages and leakages. So the first thing we need to do and prioritize is how do we block these leakages? How do we close the door and the tap of wastages? Take the example of Lagos State, which has been repeated over time and is almost becoming boring. There was a time it was 600 million, per month in terms of IGR. And today we are talking of 20 billion per month. What happened substantially was that the leakages were significantly blocked. Lagos there has been able to deploy technology and other, financial, fiscal policies to block those holes.
Thank
Without
you.
that, they cannot increase taxation because the personal income tax which states are having and VAT is a matter for federal government to legislate on. So you will see that it's not about just increasing taxes and all that. But the first thing, let us try to block those leakages.
Thank
Bring
you,
all
sir.
the revenue into one basket.
Okay.
Let's stop the multiplicity of revenue collection agencies where everything may not end up in the federation accounts. We need to harmonize tax collection,
Yeah.
streamline, administration of taxes.
All
In
right,
which
sir.
case, every
Let's take a short break. When we
Yes.
come back, we continue this conversation. Stay with us. Welcome back. So Anima had a question.
Yes, I wanted to talk about, what we can do. You've been talking about how we must cut down costs. But in this year's budget alone, about 190-something billion is budgeted for the National Assembly infrastructure alone. How seriously must we look at, checking this? How important is running the National Assembly that we have to budget such an amount of money? Also, we have the budget servicing, which you cannot escape.
We have
That
to
is
pay our
gulping over
legacy.
6 trillion. About 6 trillion of the budget this year, next year. So what can we do? How serious must we be about this?
Mr. Tajuddin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Well, in terms of streamlining expenditure, of course, we cannot say it louder that the leadership, the political actors must demonstrate leadership by example by looking at cutting down costs of running government. The populace are shouting that there is a lot of hardship. And the best way for an effective and efficient leader to do is to demonstrate that this hardship is not being borne by the citizen alone, that they are also sharing in the burden. So it's to do a self-examination and see what sacrifices they can also make. Let me put it like that. So that because we are running government for the people, and whatever you are doing must you must carry the people along. One of the major problems of the economy, even which is impacting on the revenue, is the gap in trust. So the first thing is you must build people's trust by demonstrating that you feel the pain that we are also facing or feeling. Now, in terms of debt service, debt on its own ordinarily is not such a bad thing. But for it not to be a bad thing, you must be spending borrowed money on infrastructure that has the ability, the potential to expand the economy in terms of production, creating jobs. In that case, the additional income generated to corporate bodies in terms of salaries on which individuals will pay tax, in terms of boosting economic activities, we eventually pay for that. If you are borrowing for consumption, then that is a recipe for disaster. Because how do you pay back if you've taken the money and you spend it? So while we are trying to sustain the economy by borrowing, we must know the limit of what we can do. It is very easy for economic managers to fall into the trap of statistics. Today, our borrowing, according to government, is about 40% of GDP, and the benchmark is 55%. But we must realize that GDP will not pay that money back. It is your revenue that will pay the money back. So we cannot just look at statistics in isolation. We need to look at our capacity to pay. For me as an accountant, I'll say, how much am I earning? If I'm borrowing, how much do I need to service this debt? So we need to more or less find a way to curtail it. Like I've said, the economic managers, I want to believe that they are responsible. And because of pressure to deliver the dividend of democracy, they may be constrained to say, okay, there's a limit to which we can cut this expenditure. And I keep saying, in that case, let's hand more money. Let's save from wherever we can save. And whatever we are constrained to borrow, let's be able to trace it into productive activity, in which case, we know that the pain today will be compensated for in the nearest future.
Okay, Mr. Tajuddin, on a lighter note, I hope you're not stingy, because when we hear accountants, we just hear people who are not able to release money.
Well, that is the level for we accountants, for which I'm very proud to wear.
Yeah. But I have a question. I have a question, sir.
What people call stinginess is actually prudence.
I agree with you, sir.
Thank you. Accountant is such a professional that will not spend for the sake of spending. It will reflect whether it is actually justifiable
or not. But I have a question.
There's a difference between you needing something and you want something. And accountant will go into that economic realm of, do I really need it?
I agree with you, sir. So, back to the matter at hand. We've had cases where the CBN is not able to release Forex to business people. We took a part of that in the newspaper review this morning. And businesses are crumbling and making things very expensive because they have to buy the Forex from the local black market, and they're not able to make things cheaper for us. In your analogy on how we can, start producing more so that we do not depend on just the oil, you talked about diversification. How do you think the government can make or give businesses a conducive environment to flourish? Because I believe Nigerians are able to take themselves out of this poverty.
Yes, that is another side of the problem of revenue shortage. Revenue shortage in terms of Forex earning. Okay. Our almost 80–90% of our Forex earning had been from oil export. Oil is the only thing we virtually export in this country. Now, we are not even able to produce enough to export. And we are hearing almost 30–40% of what is being produced is being stolen. I mean, embarrassingly. Now, to solve that problem, we also need to increase our revenue inflow in terms of dollars. So we need to pay attention, deliberate policy to encourage production for exports. There is no shortcut to it. The diaspora remittances is reducing because even Nigerians in diaspora, the talents we are losing abroad, which the payback for us should have been the home remittances which popularized Western Union in those days. Because of the lack of trust and confidence in the economy, are also not even remitting enough. We are losing talent in the jackpot syndrome, and we are not getting the payback, even though that will not cover for it. The real solution to that, in my own view, is to make deliberate policy to encourage export. We need to also attach to that is to educate our people and also make policies to discourage substantial import consumption. Virtually everything we consume is being imported. Even things as simple, as easy as biscuit. The elites, if the biscuit is produced here, they don't want it. Everyone wants imported biscuit. What is in biscuit? Flour, butter, sugar that we cannot produce and consume.
We like sweet things.
We must go back to national orientation where the populace is educated to let us consume what we produce. We reduce importation, we increase export. That, to my mind, is the way out.
Who's ready?
So your last comments are very, very important. But, they say leadership starts from the head, you know, and even though there are some people that postulate that you can lead from
So,
behind,
let me
it
pause you
really
here. We
isn't
have the House of
effective.
Representatives, Honorable Benjamin Kalu. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, good morning, good morning. So I would like to ask your initial thoughts on the budget that has been passed by the president. I'm sure you've seen the breakdown. What do you make of it?
Thank you very much. Let me use this opportunity once again to mention that we are impressed with the way the executive and the legislature have gone about maintaining this budget calendar to run according to the mandate of the Constitution, January to December, which was not there before now. It helps us to do the right economic projection, both in the private sector and the public sector. And you know, when budgets are delayed, the impact of it on our economy is huge. So we have been able to save that through less acrimony and rancor between these arms of government, understanding the principle that though we are three arms of government, we are one government with one objective in mind, which is nation building. Yeah, talking about the budget as it is at the moment, my reaction is that it's a good one on the face of it, but I will not be here defending the executive who, though that the president has passed the ball to us, but not completely so, because the heads of the MDAs are also supposed to come and justify the numbers to enable us know whether the I's are dottable and the T's are crossable by the time we listen to the budget presentation. So we will be looking out for the parameters that we also recommended when the MTEF was brought to us, and we did our analyses, and we chose certain parameters in view of our needs analyses locally and also global realities. So our view would be, or our take would be, this budget, does it reflect the needs of our people?
Okay.
Is it realistic? You know, and then we'll take it up from there. They have made some proposals, like informing us that oil production at 1.69 million barrels per day. We agree with them for 2023. We also agree with them that the benchmark that they are looking at $70 per barrel is a little bit doubtful to us, considering what is happening in Russia and Ukraine. We believe that the market forces will push the price of oil up. So we are pegging it at $73 per barrel, which will help us achieve about 155 billion that we will now intend to push to reduction of the budget deficit.
Okay,
but
Honorable.
We are accepting that 3.75% on the GDP growth projection is also not a wrong call, and 17.16% on the inflation. It's not a wrong call. We also accepted that the 11.3 trillion is on the high side. An effort must be made to see how we can bring it down.
Okay, Honorable Kalu, let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Tokwe had a question for the Honorable.
Okay. Yes, Honorable Benjamin Kalu. I was going to ask this question earlier, but I think you're the perfect person to ask. Our economic experts had spoken concerning the importance of becoming more patriotic in our consumption as a nation. You know, increasing, Nigerians must buy Nigeria. We should reduce our appetite for foreign goods. And that is the right direction, because a lot of our forex is going into things that it shouldn't be going into, while the critical industry like manufacturing is suffering. But my position is it must start from the head. What are the prices, what are the cuts you think the National Assembly needs to make? What sacrifice would you pose that within your immediate community as leaders must make to now build the spirit of patriotism, where all Nigerians would know that we will eat our rice with stone, we will not eat imported rice, because we are seeing our leaders also displaying that level of patriotism by only consuming what is being produced in Nigeria to reduce the burden of importing food and luxury items in here?
I totally agree with you, and I have said it in previous interviews that this budget must be adapted to reflect our needs. And one of those needs is that we need to keep our money here. We don't need to send our money out. So the much we keep locally, the more it will help to grow our economy. Therefore, our eyes, we're going to wear, our spectacles when we are looking at the budget. And what we'll be looking at for will be those things that has the local content element in them. We are going there as a house. We are fighting to broaden the scope of the local content that is mainly on oil and gas, space. We are trying to make it go round the entire sector of the economy. So in this budget, we're going to be looking at the things that are supposed to be from Nigeria. They should come from Nigeria, and also the effort that is being made by various relevant agencies or ministries or departments on stimulating our economy by reviving our industry. So the trade and industry, we're going to be looking at their budget to see if there are steps taken through the budget that will, stimulate these moribund establishments that are there, which will end up reducing the unemployment rate, which will end up increasing the value of our currency, and the benefits cannot be overemphasized. So this is one of the things we'll be doing when we wear our cap as the people with the power of the purse. They must convince us that this budget, in implementing it, our economy will be stimulated.
Nima.
Okay, sir. Honorable, you projected price of oil per barrel in this budget is what concerns me, considering that NUPENG, Pengasen, and a lot of other agencies are coming out to talk about the stealing of oil in the Niger Delta, and we not being able to meet our OPEC quota. What exactly are the plans that made you arrive? What factors did you consider to arrive at this projected cost of oil per barrel, and how do you, as a house, plan to assist government to meet the OPEC quota so we can actually be earning?
Yes, like I mentioned, this budget, I mentioned previously in other interviews, this budget is a draft document. It's a proposal from the executive. But we have the power to make this law, and we have the power of the purse. So when it comes, like I mentioned during my introductory statement, we will check to know where to cross the T's and where to dot the I's. The issue of price per barrel, which they presented to us through the MTEP at $70 per barrel. We believe that it should be better than that. It should be better than that, considering the global scenario, what is happening with oil price around the world. It is on the increase, it's not on the decrease, because of the impact of the war from Russia and Ukraine. And we said, instead of projecting at $70 per barrel, it is better to do 73. And that was a conservative proposal for the increase from 70 to 73. And we believe that the more we can get out of our oil, considering the less that we are producing, to produce 1.69 million barrels per day is not good for us. It's not what we ought to be doing beyond that. But since we have less, and the current global market is saying oil is needed and the price should be more, let's go for 73. And with the 115 that we'll get, we'll push it to reduce our exposure of 11.3 trillion. So the step that we are taking is, ad hoc committees have been set up to look at this stealing of oil, what is happening about it. They are busy working. We're engaging with NNPC. NNPC Limited is taking steps towards that direction. We invited the Minister of Finance. We are all putting heads together to see that we stop this oil theft. And another one that is very important is the oil subsidy, because most time, they say exchange of oil. We'll give you oil, you give us a refined product, and all the rest of that. Sometimes the quantity that is leaving the country, we need to understand, is it 500,000 barrels that is actually leaving, or is it 1 million and declared at 500,000? So we have done some investigation with Navy. Last week, I was in that trip, and we found out that, Navy is not posted at the loading point of this product. And so they only work with the manifest that is, transmitted to them. So we are now going to present to the House that it is important that Navy is at the loading point so that we know it is 1 million that we are sending, or 500 that we are sending out of the loading zone, so that we know where is this money, where is this oil leaking from. And 88, 89 of the Constitution said it is our responsibility to find out where the leakages is coming from,
from.
with regards to government revenue. So talking about oil,
Find out
the
in
House is
sincerity,
doing something
sir.
about that.
Yes, sir. So let's get a question in for Mr. Akonde.
So, sir, I want to come back to you. We are still a very oil-dependent economy, and I know that we've been paying lip service to saying we want to increase other products, agriculture, refining agricultural products. Based on your own analysis of the current budget that was just presented to the National Assembly, are we funding these other industries appropriately? Or in your own calculation, are we just doing talk shop, or is the money following where you believe it should be going, sir?
Mr. Tajuddin Akonde, are you there?
Thank you very much. I think we cannot advocate too much the fact that we need to put policies and funds to encourage the real sector where production can actually take place. You see, we have to, with all the things we will do or we are doing to block the leakage in oil and all that, we cannot continue to depend on oil. All over the world at the moment, there is energy crisis. What the Russia-Ukraine war has revealed is that, you see, the entire European nation and outside cannot continue to depend on oil. They are already thinking of alternative energy sources, renewable energy and all that. So we will be deceiving ourselves if we sit down and think we can benefit from the crisis. Yeah, that may be in the short run, but within the next 3 to 5 years, the demand for oil itself is going to go down substantially. So this is the time for policymakers to begin to think of how the economy can be less dependent on oil, right? And if you look at countries that have sustained economic, volatility, they are countries that are basically based on production. Look at China. Everybody produces in China today and bring it back to their market to sell. The crisis all over the world in terms of even having goods on the shelf was because the lockdown and the COVID restriction in China curtailed production. So it is production, production, production. First, we must produce food enough for us to eat, food security. We must produce other items that we need. I mean, we have limestone, cement production has increased, and you can see the kind of road they are constructing now from the infrastructure tax credit. Other than, just put bitumen on the road and all that. If you see the Apapa Ojota Express Road, see the way it was, the casting was done. We have iron ore, the Ajakuta and all that since 1980, 81. Why can't we support automobile industry and other industries that need? The problem with the housing sector today is because most of the iron rod and all that you use for construction is
Thank you, sir. Because of time, we need to get in a few more questions.
Yes, for him, I have a question, sir.
Go ahead.
This issue of us, turning away from oil, how can we cash in on this Russia-Ukraine issue? Presently, the French Prime Minister is visiting Algeria for a gas deal. How can Nigeria, with what God has blessed us, how can we cash in?
When you stop oil
with what is happening around the world, how can we make...
We begin to talk with those who are suffering from the supply disruption. We need to go into negotiation and discussion with them. But you see, it will not happen overnight because we don't have the pipeline to send oil to Germany or to...
Shouldn't we be looking into that?
But yes, when you look at, if you follow the news, with all the sanctions on Russia, what is happening? They begin to think of a different financial model where, moving away from dollar and liaising with China to do some other things. So I believe the Ministry of Petroleum, the Ministry of Finance, and our, honorable members will come together and begin to talk to those who are suffering from this and say, okay, what can we give you? There was a time Russia was selling oil to India and China at 30% discount. And they are not losing revenue because the volume that is being purchased from them increased by more than 30%. So there is a compensation, and at the end of the day, there is higher revenue.
Thank you so much,
Mr.
Mr. Tajuddin. Yes, let me quickly ask a question to the Honorable Benjamin Kalu. So 100 billion has been budgeted for constituency projects based on the results achieved so far on previous budgets. Do you think this money is justified? One, is there a plan to quiz these constituency projects in the past to ensure that the money used for it was used properly for those projects? Are you there, Honorable?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Hello?
We can hear you, sir.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. I think I was muted from that side.
Okay.
Yeah, the 100 billion is not even sufficient. People are afraid to say it. Yeah, I say that. Yes. And I like that exclamation from you. But if you come from the rural areas where some of us come from, that has not, known the impact of dividends of democracy from the federal government, and the states don't have enough resources to be able to cater for all the needs of these rural areas, you will understand the impact of constituency projects. It is helping democracy to thrive. It is helping the government to look good. The presence of President Buhari in the federal constituency where I come from wouldn't have been felt if I didn't go to the House of Representatives and if he didn't approve my constituency projects and other federal government projects that I lobbied to bring to my constituency. So, answering your question, yes, and I want to thank President Buhari because his administration made sure that the members of the parliament got almost 100% of the funding of those constituency projects. Wow. And our people are celebrating, and that is the truth. They are celebrating, and we want to encourage the coming government to also look at ensuring that the benefit achieved through constituency projects so far, that it will be sustainable and it will be enlarged. I like the aspect that Mr. President said that this budget is not going to be looking at new projects, looking at sustaining what they have put in place. And I think the House is going to buy into that to make sure that in the national development agenda or policy of the nation, it will not be start a project, abandon it, start a new one, that the ones that this administration started will have a continuum with this budget, and then the new government can start from there. And then whether or not they have been verified. Yep.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Tajuddin Akonde, for joining us on the show today, and Honorable Benjamin Kalu for joining us on the show today. We have to go,
I appreciate them for the work they are doing so far.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
having me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We really appreciate. Now, this budget issue, I believe, will still continue. It's going to be an ongoing conversation. They've not debated it. We still have more questions that we would ask.
Reduce or increase it.
Increase or reduce, and try as much as possible to cut the cost of governance. That's all we can take on the show today. Thank you so much, ladies. We'll see you again tomorrow. Have a lovely day.
Bye.